I have a daughter, and when she was in preschool, she, like every other preschool girl on the planet, loved to play dress-up. She loved to read, too, and would take on the personas and mannerisms of the various characters as her own. We would go to the library together, but as I combed the stacks, I noticed that there were precious few girl protagonists in some of the books, in many of the books. Most of them were beautiful princesses who were, well, kind of dumb. Which was all well and good until my daughter started to pretend that she was dumb. Desperate for interesting, smart female characters, I started to write my own stories with girl zookeepers and pilots and park rangers who saw the world, loved their friends, and of course, made good choices. I was curious about how widespread was this phenomena of dippy girl leads, so I did some digging and found some pretty compelling research. Sociology professor Janice McCabe of Florida State University reviewed over 6,000 children's books published between 1900 and 2000. She found that only 33% of them featured protagonists who were girls. Another researcher, Stacy Smith at the Gina Davis Institute of Gender and Media, did a similar study to find out how many females had speaking parts in TV and film. She looked at 36 children's shows and 129 family films and found that 69% of the children's TV and 72% of the family films had no speaking parts for girls. And that 72%, that was the same rate in 1946. Alison Bechdel, a cartoonist, came up with a measurement known as the Bechdel scale. It has 3 questions. 1, are there at least 2 female characters? 2, do they talk to each other? And 3, do they speak to each other about anything else other than a man? You'd be surprised. Writer Charles Stross notes that if passing this test were mandatory, it would have jeopardized half of the 2009 Academy Award for Best Picture nominees. So why does this matter? It's only media, right? Well, not really. In 1995, Claude Steele, an education and psychology professor at Stanford University, identified a phenomena called stereotype threat. Here's an example. In 1999, a researcher named Jeff Stone did an experiment with 2 groups of athletes. Both groups contained both African American and Caucasian students. He told them that he was going to give them a test, The first group, he described the test as measuring athletic ability, a stereotypically African American trait. The second test he described as measuring athletic strategy, a stereotypically Caucasian trait. Both groups got the same test, but the results were significant. In the first test, the athletic ability, the African American students did way better. In the strategy test, the Caucasian students did way better. So we can extrapolate for girls if we're bombarded with images of how we should be thin or deferential or not as smart, chances are good, according to stereotype threat, that we'll act that way. This phenomena has been confirmed by over 300 studies across multiple races, ethnicities, and genders. So this has been a depressing talk thus far. But we're all heroes in this room, right? So let's change the narrative. I want to begin a conversation about how we might redesign the hero's journey for girls in the 21st century. Supporting girls to be self-confident isn't just a women's issue, it's a humanity issue. Now, I'm going to present a series of tropes or themes or ideas that we can use to rediscover and reconsider how the journey looks for girls today. Girls have more opportunities than they've ever had before, but our stories desperately need to be updated. I invite you to consider these tropes as some possible themes or inspirations to help re-engineer new models and new journeys. The first trope is this. The stories that are out there in books and movies will not change until we change our stories about ourselves. I'm too fat. I'm dumb. I don't understand math. I'm terrible at athletics. These are stories out there that are really damaging to us. And being aware of these types of stories is so, so important, mostly because they're not true. They're part of a negative, self-critical impulse. But because we believe them, because of stereotype threat, we internalize these beliefs and our actions are ones of self-loathing rather than self-care or respect. And then, surprise, we are terrible at math. We are bad at athletics. We do feel dumber because our beliefs about who we are overrule any possible success, and we never give ourselves a chance to learn or try. There's a lot of research about neuroplasticity these days, the idea that the brain can change in ways previously thought impossible. Carol Dweck, a psychology researcher also at Stanford, has identified two types of mindsets: fixed and growth. People with a fixed mindset believe that intelligence is something that you're born with, fixed, like eye color or blood type. People with a growth mindset believe that intelligence can be grown with effort over time, like a skill. Dweck found that people with growth mindsets not only performed better on a series of tests, but learned and retained more information than the fixed mindset people. The only difference between the two groups was not their intelligence, but how they viewed their intelligence. So our stories about ourselves, our intelligence, our capacity for growth matter a lot. This trope suggests that we can model stories for girls with a growth mindset who can model an attitude of grit and tenacity. The second trope is to cultivate love for our bodies. This trope is one where the heroine learns to listen to her body rather than hate it or try and control it. She learns to make peace with her body, respect it, and nourish it. The body is another source of wisdom. It's a vehicle through which we experience all life. I had an eating disorder when I was in high school. I remember the thrill of losing pounds, of exercising my brains out and fitting into a size 2, of having that mastery over my body, of all of those urges to eat, and having a mastery over those was exhilarating until I passed out on the kitchen floor. My mom panicked and cooked up some amazing stew, which I didn't eat at first. I didn't want to put on the extra pounds, but I think the terror in her eyes scared me into it. I don't think I've tasted anything better since. Food is nourishment and it's sustaining, and without it, we die. So the question for this trope is, how might we redefine our relationship to food? The next one is to examine female jealousy. There's something archetypal about the way girls and women cut each other down. Venus was jealous of Psyche, Hera was jealous of Aphrodite, and Snow White's jealous stepmother cast a spell that knocks out poor Snow for 100 years. Surely this metaphor is about separating from the mother, and indeed that is an important part of the journey. But gone are the days when we separated from our mothers and fathers to get married and live happily ever after. We need more robust stories about girls individuating into adulthood, managing friendships, work life, and colleagues, and to emerge stronger in their connections as a result. Ironically, Disney, the bastion of dumb princesses, has started to show signs of understanding this one. In last year's Brave, heroine Merida is angry at her mother, the Queen, for forcing her to get married against her will. And Merida has a journey to help reconnect with her mother at the end. This year's Frozen, another Disney production, also looks promising. I haven't seen it, but the billboards look really good. So the next one is technology. We can't have any discussion about 21st century anything without talking about the role of technology. Technology continues to transform everything about our world, but especially storytelling. Gone are the days when we needed to have a book deal or a friend in Hollywood to get our stories out. Today, the average first-world teenager has more storytelling capacity in her pocket than all 3 TV networks combined in 1970. These personal yet highly interconnected technologies have created a whole new universe of options for storytellers, including games, apps, blogs, YouTube shows, in addition to the traditional channels of TV, film, and books. Lastly, our concept of narrative itself is changing. Writer Douglas Rushkoff suggests that our always-on society is undergoing a narrative collapse, meaning that when we have all these multiplicities of technologies available to us, we don't sit and listen to one long narrative, but we surf across multiple narratives. And that creates a different relationship to us as writers of that narrative. It's the baby steps towards a new world where we're all heroes in our own journey. So what are the opportunities in a world where our tools and the very definition is changing quickly? How might we create new stories for girls that inspire and motivate them to heroics? These are the questions that we'll tackle, and there's a breakout session this afternoon at 4:45 to do that very thing. So where are the girl zookeepers and pilots and park rangers? Or the politicians or investors or CEOs? They're everywhere. We just have to give them life. We have to give them some stories to inhabit and permission to be big and awesome. Thank you.